Harvey, history always screws over Sikhs. Like you've done an extensive course on this. We always end up worse off after every big turning point of some kind. Even though this isn't a big turning point, it's a potential turning point that could go in a good direction if you negotiate shrewdly and properly. But Sikhs don't learn from it, and they always have this problem where they're more than willing to fight for it, but when they get the cause that they need to obviously get right, they always somehow get it wrong, and then we always get suppressed, and then we come out worse from it.
So the question is, so the door's open. So who is our representation to sit down with Modi? That's my question, number one.
There is that as well, yeah, which is obviously a complicated issue.
Are you going to be on that panel? They should bring in special advisor from UK, not Diwani. We'll be speaking on this issue. Second thing is, I don't know this stat, but perhaps you do. As a rough estimate percentage, obviously when the movement started, we said, it's not about Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, this is about farmers, right? Of the farmers that are protesting or have been affected, what percentage are Sikh? Or Sikh?
Okay, let's take the second question first. Yep. The overwhelming majority of protesters were by the end now were no longer Sikh. There was such a huge number of non-Sikh who were coming from places like Uttar Pradesh. They weren't all coming to the single border, but they were all protesting in their own states or coming towards Delhi from the south and all these other places. So I don't think it's necessarily a figures number of the most number. But as a whole over the year, it's the Punjabi Sikh who have done the most amount of protesting.
Raising awareness. Yeah, okay.
The most amount of protesting over the year, and who, as you said, raising awareness, the ones who've instigated the whole thing, who developed the spirit of Asita Ranaya, we're not going anywhere, we're sitting here. That whole idea, that notion was instigated entirely by the Sikh of Punjab. Now, I'm choosing my words carefully as well. I'm saying the Sikh of Punjab, there's Sikh in Haryana, there's Sikh in Delhi, Sikh in Uttar Pradesh. They're part of this too. But I'm saying it's the Sikhs of Punjab who are the troublesome ones. They're the ones that the state is going after. They're the ones who are the ones they're going after. And they are the ones who are the politically minded in that sense. The other people, the other Sikhs, it's not like, they lack anything. They're not a watered down version. But what they are is they are in a very different political landscape. All of this centers around Punjab, that landscape. And so when you're in that landscape where you have a two-party system, only a third party entered into it in the last 10 years and then was not able to progress further because of their own political intrigue that's taking place, still going on now. As a result, you're kind of stuck. Right. And so there's just this complete frustration with not only the process, the system, your lot in life, but with now the only thing we had left, which wasn't making money anyway, but even that's being taken away. The impetus had to come from those people. And so hence they're the group that is still overwhelmingly the most significant as part of this protest. So I don't have exact numbers, but I know from the numbers that I've read in the past, and even last week, overwhelmingly, it was no longer Sikhs of Punjab. Whereas 6 months ago, it was overwhelmingly Sikhs of Punjab who were the number one group in terms of numbers that were there. And that's when Uttar Pradesh started coming in, when a particular union got involved at a very high level and refused to back down. And, that was in the spring. And as a result, loads of people from UP started coming out more and more. And it grew and grew and grew. So I think that's your second question answered. The first one, is easily the more interesting one. And even when I was thinking about today, like coming on this podcast for the week before, and I was like, I really hope they don't ask me this question. I kid you not. I didn't think too much about today's podcast, other than because I've been thinking about it, writing about it for a while anyway, but about the subject matter. But I didn't want to think too much about the podcast. But that was the one question I hoped you wouldn't ask. And there's a reason for that. And it's because I'm not going to give you the answer outright. People who understand Punjabi politics like deeply, who might watch this and have an interest level, will know immediately when I say that, in my opinion, there's only one person and one group. It might not be that one person who goes and has the tete-a-tete, but it'll be his envoys, his ambassadors who go have that conversation. But I think for me, so it's very personal, for me, there's only one group, one person who can have that conversation. Now, for specific reasons. I'm not going to say who that is, but the more you get into Punjabi politics, or you look at the space, the field right now, you'll know exactly who that is. It's not any of the prominent leaders that most of us know about, and the names you might be thinking of. We have like a two-class system in Punjab. We use the words Punjabi and Sikh synonymously. We're all guilty of doing that a lot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help us all the time. And this is one of those occasions where it hinders us a lot. But there's a reason people do it. And it's because Punjabi politics is dominated by Sikh politics and Sikh organization, Sikh group politics. The Sikh leadership that we have is all focused almost entirely on Punjab's politics. They're focused on elections, on retaining their seats, on trade and commerce, believe it or not, whatever there is in Punjab. They're focused entirely on that. And whilst they have had some level of input or say-so or interest level or whatever you want to call it with the protests, they've had to, they've kind of been forced into it, because they don't want to go have that takra with Delhi. They would much rather have avoided it. It's what generally you'll find people will have been saying, like in langar halls around the country, or just sitting around, manja in Punjab, and even like on Twitter and social media, I've seen it occasionally when I've looked. But people say chodar di pokhya. They just want to look after their seat. And that's probably a bit too simplistic, but at the end of the day, it's actually at the heart of the matter. Most of Punjab Sikh leadership, they look at Punjab politics and they worry just to stay in Punjab politics. When it comes to looking at the nation as a whole, and that doesn't just mean India, but it means its foreign affairs, i.e. how it approaches its communications with Pakistan, and how it deals with neighboring territories that it sees as foes like China, then and the whole mess that's going on in the Indian Ocean and the battleground there. When it comes to that, there's very few Sikh leadership that's actually interested. Right. And there's very little Sikh leadership that wants to get involved. There is one group that I look up to and I try to listen to all the time. And one particular individual who is the leader, if you like, although he's not the de facto leader, that group is the one that I think should be the one that would go forward and have these conversations. They have the capacity, they have the knowledge, they have the ability. Where they're even going to fall down is it's, by the way, it might sound weird like he's saying all this stuff, but he's not saying who it is. If I tell you the name, it makes very little difference. You're not going to go out and work it out anyway, or if you work it out, it's not going. If you work it out yourselves, it's not going to make a big difference. You're going to be like, okay, because what I'm talking about, the principle is more important.